Oh, they're all there now.
Yeah. Yeah. Is there a raise hand?
Yeah, it's like,
Where is it?
it's if you click participants, it goes at the bottom. It says raise hand. Yes. No. Go slower. Go faster. More. Need a break. Maybe you can't see it because you're host.
All I can see is yes, no, go slower, go fast.
Oh, you obviously can't raise your hand because you're a host.
Got it. Okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
So you've got what you need.
Yeah.
Nice. And we're recording as well. I better change my name to something more appropriate. I'll call myself Arresty. Alex, we got the $10,000 from the Honda Foundation.
Oh, excellent.
So we can buy the forklift thing.
Excellent. That's good news.
It is.
What about the car? We don't really
No, they didn't. No, I don't think. I think in principle they probably wouldn't give you both.
Oh, okay. It was one or the other.
That's what I'm guessing. But we got the full amount of the funding, so the trustees really liked the project. So for what we're doing. So
excellent. Hi, Ron. Oh, it's just like, yeah. I'm not going to fit it all on.
Sorry, struggling here with a few things. Technology problems.
No.
There you go. Hello, how are you all?
Yeah, good. Yeah. Ron did the, well, Ron is Hydra. So I was going to say Ron did the Hydra report, but Ron is Hydra. And he produced
a small portion.
Report.
I'm just one part of the many cogs that.
You're the main man, Ron.
No, that's not true. No. Wait till Christina gets online. She'll have something to say about
that. Okay.
So, how's it all going?
Oh, it's going.
Excellent.
Yep.
Expecting many?
I don't know about. Well, it's hard to know. 50 people registered, so maybe half of them.
Okay, well, we've got nothing better to do here in South Australia. So.
Oh, yes. Welcome to the world of lockdown.
Yes.
It doesn't really count. It's not even a week.
It seems like a week already.
You're only in day one.
Yeah, we're pretty savage, but anyway. Go hard, go early. It's not a bad strategy, to be honest.
Hello, Fiona. So, how are you?
Hello, Alex. I'm very well, and you?
That's good. I'm good. And for my team, Fiona was my PhD supervisor.
Oh.
So, she's very special.
Ah, yes.
In my world, anyway.
Well, we decided that Alex didn't really need a PhD.
Yeah.
Demonstrated her super intellect without the need of such a thing. I'm sure you'll agree.
Yeah. It's just a piece of paper, isn't it?
That's right, but it was a good topic.
Yeah.
So there's a South Australian person. How do you walk your dog when you're not allowed out?
You walk your dog to the supermarket, don't you?
Oh,
damn straight.
Sad.
Or to the bottle shop.
Oh,
The local boozery, because everybody panicked when they found out that all the shops were shutting, and the Premier in his infinite wisdom backflipped on booze shops.
His priorities, right, I guess.
Well, yes, us South Australians don't mind a tipple. I'm not going to say we're a bunch of drunks.
No, that's all right. Too much information.
Yeah, indeed. He says while he's just about to sip a gin.
Yeah. Yeah. Just while we're waiting, we'll start in a minute or two. It's just gone 6 o'clock. We are going to record it. So if you have an aversion to having your video on or your name or anything, feel free to change that. We've just got a few people that couldn't make this time but are really interested, so we're recording it for them, really.
There we are, there it is. So, here it is. So I'll just put it up here. No, I'll get it. It's all right. I'll get it for you. Just leave it there.
We might get started, I think. Welcome everyone. I am Alex Haynes. I'm the CEO of Whittlesea Community Connections, and it's really exciting for us to be able to start sort of more public face of the community farm. This is our first sort of information and idea sharing session. So welcome. It's great to have so many of you there. They're out there with us in the online world. I would just like to start by acknowledging that our organisation, Whittlesea Community Connections, and the proposed farm are on the land of the Wurundjeri people, and pay my respects to their elders. Through the development of the farm, I am hoping we're able to learn more about connection to and care for country through the journey, and take more positive steps to reconciliation. I'd also like to introduce or acknowledge the team members who have been working with me on the farm project. So we have Charlotte and Ahmed. You're not going to be able to see them, but they might just wave. So they've joined us to do some of this research and investigation and sort of conversations with people. And Aresti is our coordinator of the Food Collective, and he is taking on the role of Zoom master. So if you find he mutes you or does something to you, that's the man that's doing it. But we are going to try, it's not our usual sort of community engagement format. So feel free to use the chat, ask questions or share ideas, and Aresti will sort of monitor that over the night to make sure we get to those questions and provide responses where we can. But you can also use the raise hand function that's at the bottom of the list of participants. So by all means do that, and he'll try and interrupt us when he sees someone needing to ask a question. And if none of that works, just unmute yourself and say something. That's fine too. So it's not a formal event. It is a community information sharing session. So feel free to imagine yourself with all these people that you can see on the screen, you know, in a more face-to-face setting and act accordingly. I know that's a bit difficult, but we'll try. Yeah, it's really, I'd also just like to thank any of you who have been involved to date and have shared your wisdom and expertise with us. We are in that investigative phase, really seeking out people who are interested and might want to be involved or have some wisdom that is really relevant to the things that we're trying to develop with the community farm. So really the purpose of tonight is to share the overall concept and the intent behind the Whittlesea Community Farm, in the hope that we can encourage people to participate in the planning and the development and in the activities as the farm develops, and to sort of inform what it is that we prioritise as we go through, because we can't really do everything that we might think of doing. So your input and the input sort of more broadly going forward from here will really help fine tune our priorities. And in terms of an agenda, I'm just going to start by providing a bit of background so you sort of know where the idea came from, and then talk a little bit about the partnership we have and where we are in the journey or in the process. And then Charlotte will outline some of the activities that we've been investigating, and some of the sort of community models of that may be relevant to some of those activities. So she'll sort of share some of that thinking a little bit later. We will stop talking every now and again just to make sure people have a chance to ask questions and or share their opinions or views. So yeah, there will be a break as we go along. So let's get into it. I think Charlotte's going to share a screen so we can see some pictures, so you're not just looking at us all night. Thanks, Charlotte. So firstly, where, just maybe onto the next one, Charlotte, where the idea came from. Really, we started conversations with our Whittlesea Emergency Relief Network. So as a place-based community organisation, we provide lots of services and opportunities to our community. So part of that work is facilitating the Whittlesea Emergency Relief Network, which is full of largely volunteer organisations, and they identified the need for more storage and distribution capacity because they're working at the back of a church or in a hall or something, so it's really hard for them. So that got us thinking about food and storage of food and distribution of food, which really raises big questions about the food system and food justice, and really for us how we can think about getting the best quality, most nutritious food to those who need it the most. So that's really coming to terms with the notion that really no amount of redistributed food will solve food insecurity. So it might make us feel a bit better and it reduces waste, which is really significant. But from our point of view, food security is really an income issue. So there's some really big structural systemic foundations to food insecurity. So really we wanted to develop models and approaches that maintain people's dignity, enable choice, encourage participation, and models that sort of generate opportunities and pathways for people. So part of the solution we thought was to grow our own food and involve people in the growing and distributing and value adding to that food. So really we came to the conclusion that we just needed some land and some water, and some people power, obviously. So we approached Yarra Valley Water because they do obviously have land and they have water. And they were really interested. Just from the first conversation, they were really positive about the idea and the fact that they had a real role in that, or they could see they had a role in helping us work on the idea. Yarra Valley Water were at the time already working with Melbourne Polytechnic and their farm, and all of us work with council. So council's sort of a natural partner for any of these sorts of projects in Whittlesea. So as a partnership, I think we bring different strengths and we have a different focus as our own organisations, but we're really aligned in our vision around trying to progress this idea of the community farm and the food collective. So now it's almost 3 years we've been working together, and it's a really sort of strong and engaged partnership. Through those 3 years, we've had lots of conversations, lots of ideas, lots of opportunities, but they're not all possible, obviously. And as we go through the process and proceed, more detail becomes available, and that helps us refine priorities and work out what's feasible. And tonight is another way of doing that. Just in terms of the next slide, sorry, Charlotte. The conversations we've had to date have led us to hone in on some longer term outcomes that we think are really important for our community. So connected and healthy local community, equitable and sustainable local economy, and environmentally sustainable local food system. So they're really quite big aspirational outcomes that we're working towards. But there's a few sort of pretty clear objectives that form a part of that. So particularly from Whittlesea Community Connections point of view, we're really keen to provide pathways from hardship to opportunity and employment, because that really will change the landscape for people who are experiencing food insecurity. We want to improve health and wellbeing, demonstrate leading practice in circular economy and sustainable peri-urban agriculture, attract inclusive investment. There's a strong focus on education and training, particularly in food and fibre, but in a range of associated fields. And a really important one, given the site we are now looking to put the farm on, is to protect, restore and improve the cultural and natural heritage values and understanding. So that's our sort of framework for thinking about what we're doing. In practical terms, we really, next slide, sorry, Charlotte. We are trying to achieve those objectives through a couple of platforms. One is the Food Collective. So that is a place that people experiencing hardship can come and engage with volunteers and staff and students and services, access support and food, and see the garden growing and have an opportunity to connect in different ways. So that's the Food Collective. The other platform that relates to that is the community farm, which is sort of the main purpose of our conversation tonight, but it's important for us to sort of give people the whole picture. So the community farm is around building a strong local economy through farming, innovation and enterprise. There'll be community volunteers, there'll be farmers, job seekers, Melbourne Polytechnic students, local businesses, researchers, anyone sort of in that ecosystem of the community farm. And really the third sort of focus for us is about pathways. So how can we create more volunteering opportunities for people to develop skills, become more job ready? What are the training and employment opportunities we can generate whilst we're growing food and doing other things? So that's sort of practically, you know, how it looks. The next step really was to find suitable locations for these things to happen. So for those of you who aren't familiar with Whittlesea, we are in the outer north, so about 22 kilometres north of the CBD in Melbourne. So we're an interface council, a sort of outer ring council area. So on the map, you might be able to see the sort of big curve of the Hume Freeway. So we're really at the beginning of the Hume Freeway. So the site of the Whittlesea Food Collective is actually Whittlesea, Melbourne Polytechnic's Epping campus, so opposite the Epping railway station in the sort of heart of Epping. And the site of the farm is just up the Hume Freeway from Cooper Street, and it's the big green sort of triangle on the image. That's a site currently owned by Yarra Valley Water. It's their Aurora treatment plant. It's adjacent to the Craigieburn grasslands, a really significant parcel of grassland to the left of the site or to the west of the site. The green area that's the site for the farm is about 160 hectares, if that helps people sort of work out the size of it. And it currently has different areas, some development areas, some vegetation offset areas, some cultural heritage zone areas, native revegetation potential, and a little Curly Sedge Creek, which feeds into the Merry Creek. So that's sort of the geographical location of both those parts of our endeavour. I just want to quickly, before we get stuck into the farm, I just want to give a quick overview of the Food Collective, because it's not immediately obvious what that would be to people. So we did launch the Food Collective in November last year. And the idea was really around like a free supermarket, essentially. People could come, get food, choose the food that was sort of appropriate for them, or that they, you know, to reduce the waste of, you know, box food systems or schemes and things like that. So people could come, there were volunteers, they could access information, get help with paying bills and other things to actually enable them to improve their position. It's in, as I said, the Melbourne Polytechnic building, so Building D on the campus. It's got a community garden out the front, which was a bit unloved during COVID restrictions, but it's coming back to life thanks to Hannah and Fadi largely. And inside it's got a cool room and a freezer and some pallet racking and just normal sort of distribution centre type amenity, and a kitchen and a sort of big area that we could have for a supermarket. So you can skip through, yeah, there's our building. And as part of our COVID response, we were just about to sort of launch into the supermarket model, but went straight into a home delivery food box system just to stay safe and to help people who are isolating actually get home delivery. So there's been a lot of activity and packing boxes and delivering boxes. And in one of those photos, you can see Fergus, food truck. He's been very busy out delivering packages. So as part of our overall effort through the Food Collective, we've now reached sort of 3,000 households in the period from sort of April to October. That's about 8,500 people in our local area. So we've had a huge sort of community and business response with donations and significant support from council, the City of Whittlesea, through their emergency relief fund to help us buy food, you know, good quality, fresh, healthy food for people when they're isolating or when they're just experiencing hardship. So now that we're sort of transitioning out of COVID, we will reevaluate our model and perhaps return more to the free supermarket type model. But, you know, we imagine the Food Collective will evolve and adapt as we go. So are there any, I feel like we've given a bit of background. Is there any questions or comments at this point before we launch into sort of what might happen in detail at the farm? Sorry, that was a bit of a whirlwind introduction.
There's a question here.
About, can you tell us where the food comes from?
Yep.
So the food at the moment comes from wholesale fruit and veg, well, wholesale actually. Some of them are local businesses. We've tried to focus spending money with local businesses. Some of the frozen meals, so there's sort of fresh food, fruit and veg, there's dry goods, and there's frozen meals. So frozen meals have largely come from Fair Share. So we go down and pick them up. And the rest of the food is sourced from wherever we can get it locally or the most cheaply. We have had quite a lot of community donations of food and of funding. So some of it comes through community donations, and local businesses have supported us with food and money, and local churches. And so some of the food comes from donations, but a lot of it we purchase. Yes, you can have copies of the PowerPoint. That was the other question. So we'll put it up on the website, or send the link out or something. Someone who's more technology literate can work out how to circulate the PowerPoint. Any other questions or comments people have before we launch into the farm? No, we're all good.
Alex, sorry, I'll just make a comment. For some reason I can't get my full screen, and so I'm going to unmute myself for rest day.
Oh, that's okay.
This is just such a great initiative. I love it. I love it on so many levels. It's wonderful. Congratulations.
Thanks, Joe. Were other sites considered? So yeah, there's another question about other sites. So there were quite a number of sites for the farm that were considered. Not very many other sites were available for the food collective. It just happened that Melbourne Polytechnic had a perfect food grade insulated wine store that they weren't using. So we didn't really consider other options for the food collective, but other sites for the farm included Melbourne Polytechnic's existing farms. One they own and one is leased. And I think the sort of security of tenure was an issue there. There are other Yarra Valley water sites as well. This is the one that was deemed most suitable for a range of reasons, access reasons, size reasons. It comes with its own constraints and opportunities. But yeah, so the answer is yes, other sites were considered. Should we just keep going?
There's a second part to that question.
Oh, is there?
Around how much of the 160 or how much of the land will be used or available for agriculture? Do we leave that one?
Yep, no, I'm just about to talk about that, so I'll cover that. I think Charlotte will get back and share that map, because that will answer that question. So if you think back to the little green triangle that we showed on the Hume Freeway, you can see the Hume Freeway sort of arching around the top of the site. So this whole area was is 160 hectares. The blue area is the current wastewater treatment plant. It's got a waste to energy system, large food digesters on site. So lots of supermarkets and food manufacturers actually truck their waste out here to dispose of it, and it generates energy. And there's also a large retention pond at the bottom, you can see, that's part of the wastewater treatment. The green areas are largely conservation and vegetation offset areas. And the pink area nominated as grazing, that's about 40 hectares. And at this stage, that's proposed to be allocated to Melbourne Polytechnic agriculture program. So it might have some cattle on it. The pasture probably needs to be regenerated. And there's likely to be some sort of low density tree planting through that area as well. So that area is 40 hectares. And the area in the top left, you can see the Curly Sedge Creek, cutting across the very top corner of that. And the brown and yellow areas are really the areas designated for horticulture or orchard or nursery, those sort of people intensive areas, and that's about 15 hectares. So that would be where there's shed and car park and the sort of amenities would be. In that area, you can see, you might be able to see there's a sort of black dotted line in there. There's some old bluestone walls and quite a dilapidated existing homestead that have some heritage significance. There's also a couple of odd shaped areas, a couple that you can see in the pink area. They're fenced off stony knolls. They're also significant. There's a few in the green and blue areas as well. And there's just been about 5 more stony rises potentially identified across the site as well. So there's a lot going on, yeah, on this existing site that actually directly informs what we may or may not be able to do there. So at the moment, all the plans that we might talk about are really all subject to detailed planning, conservation management, cultural heritage management plans. This work is sort of underway, and I think as that work is done, sort of further opportunities will present, you know, as we understand the site better, and we also sort of investigate the activities further. The site is, it's not confirmed, but it potentially present, there could be golden sun moths and growling grass frogs, which are actually critically endangered. So they haven't, in all the sort of studies that have been done on the site, they haven't actually been confirmed, but the habitat and the proximity to the grasslands suggests that it could be appropriate habitat for those endangered species. The creek, the Curly Sedge Creek, is obviously significant as well. It feeds into Mary Creek, and the Curly Sedge is also endangered. And really the main ecological sort of vegetation on the site, the sort of grassy woodland, stony knolls, and the shrubland on stony knolls, and a sort of more plains grassland environment. They're all endangered. So there's lots of significant opportunities to really improve and restore some of the significant natural vegetation and potentially the species that may be able to be brought back even if they're not there. So yeah, there's lots of important things to consider, particularly when we're thinking about cultural heritage and the sort of natural environment that we might seek to sort of re-establish or revegetate or protect at least what is remnant there. So hopefully that answers the what land is available question. I'm going to pass over to Charlotte to talk a bit more about the activities and the potential models.
Yeah,
Thanks,
great.
Charlotte.
Thanks, Alex. Before we go into activities, I was going to launch a poll for anyone who would like to participate, just so we can get a bit of a gauge of what of the activities or what aspects of the farm have brought you here. So let me know if that is launched. Yep.
Yeah, it is.
So maybe I'll give everyone 30 seconds.
Have you got any
Cool.
answers?
Yeah, I do. I'm watching. It's really interesting on my end. Probably not on anyone else's. Yeah, I will share it. So I think everyone should be able to see that. But looks like a pretty nice spread. And growing food for food relief wins, which is good. It's good to know that everyone is kind of coming from different perspectives and different interests.
And for anyone that voted other or clicked other,
Oh, yeah,
it'd be good to know
other?
maybe just even in the chat what other things would be of interest to you. So feel free to add them or say them.
Oh,
No, I'm going to say it because again, I can't get into the chat. So, you know, I love the notion that it's also about, you know, volunteering opportunities, pathways to education and employment, growing skills too, and connecting community.
And I think that's the journey we've been on, from food insecurity and tangible immediate relief type things to how we work in the longer term to ensure that actually not as many people are in that situation, that they actually get longer term life outcomes from whatever we do.
There's 3 others that put other. If you're able, could you maybe just jot a word or two in the chat, if you could? Just it'd be helpful for us.
I can answer the question about ready to eat meals. So we haven't made them. I mean, we did think about that in the beginning, but there are so many free meals from Fair Share, and they're relatively good quality, and there's halal and vegetarian and sort of culturally, you know, it's getting better all the time. The sort of cultural appropriateness of that food. So we're not making any frozen meals ourselves, even though we have an amazing chef, Casey, with us. But she's doing lots of other things. But it was, you know, it was something that we were thinking about. But I think once we get through this COVID, not being able to have people in the kitchen together, I think because there's a lot of people in our community that love cooking. So I hope we'll get to some form of community cooking, and whether that ends up being cooking for the food collective to distribute or where it ends up, I think it's a definite interest people have, and it's a nice activity to engage people in. And even in COVID, we've done some really lovely things with older people who've been at home and delivered some recipes and some baking ingredients, and they've had a sort of bake off in their home. And some of those people want to now come together and cook together. So I think cooking will be definitely part of, you know, activities at the Food Collective. They just mightn't all be directed to food relief.
All right, well, I'm gonna share my screen again and talk a bit about the farm. Yeah, so like Alex has said, I'm gonna kind of have a few different sections here, and the first one is just giving a bit of a picture of some of the ideas we've had to do with different activities and the reasons for deciding which to prioritise, which to do even. And going to talk also as well about different models for the community farm and how we're going to use that space and how that kind of relates to funding or levels of research, as well as, you know, levels of participation and opportunities around education at the farm. And at the end, we're just going to kind of touch on some of the pathways to be involved in the future, and just to kind of, you know, really stress that the idea is that it's a community farm and that it's led by the community. And so the activities and the models we choose will come from what people are really interested in and really need. So here is another design concept of the farm that's a little bit prettier. And Alex has kind of touched on what is there already. And so there's really just that kind of, at the moment, it's just grazing land, and this kind of woody grassland exists, but the rest of it is all an idea, and it's not real yet. And so the ideas of what activities we wanted to do on the farm were always ingrained in growing food, and so that's around having fruit orchards and regenerative horticulture, as well as things like composting. But then the specific opportunities that the site provided around the fact that there is this remnant vegetation, as well as culturally significant sites, and the fact that it's so adjacent to the Craigieburn grasslands, and the Curly Sedge Creek runs along it, means that we've definitely been pushed more towards thinking about opportunities around Aboriginal natural resource management, and so activities around burning and agriculture, as well as education, and thinking a bit more about community-led revegetation projects, and introducing kind of sustainable agroforestry on the site as well. And within the context of Whittlesea, there's also, a strong need for native seeds and native plants to support a lot of the revegetation, especially that the city of Whittlesea is doing. So we're thinking about opportunities around seed production areas and a native plant nursery. And also thinking around activities related to bees, which is actually the first thing that has happened on the site, but I'll talk about that in a bit. So first off, I just wanted to talk about kind of the ways we're thinking about horticulture and growing food on the site. And so the food grown is kind of going to go in two main directions, and one is supplying that kind of food relief, or that grocery that the Food Collective has, and so being able to provide really good produce to the Food Collective, as well as oh, sorry, my screen has been paused. Okay, all good. So yeah, supplying food to the Food Collective, as well as being able to sell this food to generate income to support other activities. And so there's different options around how we might grow this food. So that's either things in-ground horticulture or market garden style gardens, as well as working in hydroponics and the fruit orchards. But kind of underpinning all of these choices is being able to improve the environmental health of the whole site. And while working in regenerative agriculture to be able to produce food. And so some of the things we've been thinking around that are being able to work with Aboriginal food growing systems. So that can involve setting up a bit of a food forest in the grassy woodlands, as well as kind of blurring the transition between non-Aboriginal agriculture and the food forest. And for example, having native trees and shrubs that provide windbreaks where the plots are, as well as kind of having the plots where we're growing food kind of fragmented, so that there's still habitat connectivity and we can still burn around most of the site. We're also thinking about opportunities in growing non-European and non-conventional crops that are more resilient to climate change than the crops that we are used to seeing in supermarkets, as well as growing food that's more culturally appropriate to Whittlesea. And then other things around maintaining high farm biodiversity in both the crops that we grow and in the animals that we have. And all of this is around having a low impact or really no impact on the surrounding environment, particularly around, you know, sensitive areas like Curly's Edge Creek. And so the next thing I wanted to talk about was opportunities around Wurundjeri Woiwurrung natural resource management on the site. And so a few weeks ago, we went for a walk around the site with the NARIP unit, which are the Natural Resource Management kind of branch of the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung Cultural Heritage Aboriginal Corporation. And they were coming up with lots of ideas around what we could do on the site, around both burning and so being able to see, so burning in the grassy woodlands, and as well as around other areas of the site to kind of find what native seed banks still exist there, and being able to manage the site using that, and as well as reintroducing native foods into the woodland, you know, either growing them in the farm and then moving them into the woodland, and having kind of, you know, information and education around that so people can really learn while they're at the farm. And so we're working with them to develop a 10-year, or at least a 10-year rehabilitation plan for the site. And just to make sure that the, you know, the revegetation work we do there is really embedded in Wurundjeri Woiwurrung natural resource management knowledge and skills. And kind of through all of this, really thinking about opportunities we might have in connecting with young Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people in the area, either through working on programs with the Koori VCAL at Melbourne Polytechnic, or partnerships with Bubut Willem Aboriginal Child and Family Centre, as well as just kind of, you know, being able to educate and share this knowledge in the wider community as well, through schools programs or through kind of public workshops. And I just wanted to go through a few examples of some interesting projects that, or you know, existing projects that are doing really good stuff. And most of them are around kind of native seeds and native grains. But the first one is the Dja Dja Wurrung Clans Aboriginal Corporation, and they're working in partnership with La Trobe in Bendigo, and working on kangaroo grass agriculture research. And so they're trying to establish an approach which allows a revival of jarrah cropping systems at a scale that's more applicable to conventional agriculture. And they're really embedding that in being able to support a Aboriginal economy and an Aboriginal agricultural sector. And the other example I have here is the Wurundjeri grasslands, which are in the west of Melbourne, and they're managed by the Wurundjeri Aboriginal Cooperative. And, you know, when reading about them, Lisa Briggs, the chief executive, kind of describes the work they do there as they can take young and old people out, have events, learn language, dance and song, and get a stronger sense of belonging. And the third example is an Indigenous social enterprise that was started by Bruce Pascoe called Black Duck Foods. And they're working with traditional food growing processes with a big focus on food sovereignty. And this is a loaf of bread that they made from Mundudyan Naluk, which is also called dancing grass. And so it's just kind of thinking about some of those opportunities of, you know, if we're going to be growing food in this space, rethinking the ways that we grow food in Australia. And the next thing I wanted to talk about was some of the thoughts we've been having around revegetation. And so, like Alex has touched on, and also like many of you, you know, are aware that a lot of these ecosystems are very endangered, particularly, you know, Victorian volcanic plains grasslands, where less than 2% exist since colonisation. And so it's a site that we have lots of opportunity to be able to work on remediating that issue. And so some of the opportunities we have there are around, once again, Wurundjeri Woiwurrung natural resource management, but also opportunities in research partnerships to be able to think about and develop ways to really upscale revegetation at the scale that's really needed in Victoria, and as well as opportunities in bringing in the community for volunteering and providing a space for local land cares to be able to come together and share resources or run workshops that they might not have space elsewhere. And as well as bringing in, once again, school programs or things like junior land care to really focus on education. Also opportunities around having a seed production area to supply seeds for the on-site revegetation that we want to do, as well as off-site nurseries and local land care and the city of Whittlesea. There's a big demand for that. And as well as supplying seeds for an on-site nursery, which is also something that Whittlesea is generally lacking. And the third one is just thinking about agroforestry and having a sustainable timber source in the Whittlesea area. And once again, I have a few examples of some really great projects. And so the first one is the Friends of Mary Creek Community Seed Propagation and Collection Program, where they worked with community members, I think it was called Secret 7 Seeds, to be able to kind of increase the seed source in the area. And the second one is the Community of Ringwood Indigenous Species Plant Nursery, which is a volunteer-run nursery that works with local groups to revegetate the local area. And the next one is the Grassy Ground Cover Restoration Project. So they were a very large-scale direct seeding project that combined both research and practice, and we're really working on ways to be able to revegetate grasslands on a scale that isn't yet done in Australia. And so there's lots of research opportunities within that area. And the last one is a project called, it's Imlel Site in Ballarat, which was a community-led project in agroforestry. So the last activity I wanted to touch on today was bees. So Benedict, who I believe is here, will hopefully be bringing bees on site on the 4th of December or around then. And that's to try and find the current kind of honey potential of the site over the flowering season of the red gums. And yeah, it's really exciting to kind of bring this on right at the start and see the potential for this site. And based on the size of this site, as well as other Yarra Valley water sites that could also have bees, it's been estimated that we could have somewhere around 1,000 to 1,500 bees with that area of land, which could be a significant source of employment or just opportunities for cooperatives or things like that. And Melbourne Polytechnic also want to, or maybe work with us with their Certificate 3 in beekeeping. And then other things that people have brought up when talking about bees in the area has been around having an observation hive, so that local bee groups can be able to teach the public or run workshops around that using an observation hive that can be difficult to do elsewhere. And so I just wanted to talk a bit about the criteria or the reasons why we might be prioritising different activities. And so the first one relates to what Alex was talking about earlier, and kind of meeting those really big overarching project activities, objectives around, a connected and healthy local community, equitable and sustainable local economy, and environmentally sustainable local food system. And then the other really big one is around community interest. So you know, a lot of these projects are going to be driven by people in the community, so there really has to be that strong interest to get them going and keep them going. And the next one is kind of alignment with other activities, so whether we can share expertise and resources. And then the next two are around the financial sustainability of the activities, so whether they're low financial inputs or can fund itself. There's also criteria around if it's scalable, so whether we can move it onto other Yarra Valley sites or across the city of Whittlesea, and as well around kind of the delivery and establishment ease and operations ease, and a lot of that will be to do with if there's available partnerships that can help things get going, and as well as the time frame to deliver. So thinking around, you know, if there's short-term activities we want to do based on grant funding, as well as more long-term activities that will have a larger impact in the long run. And this is, you know, we've been thinking about prioritizing activities or trying to see whether they meet these criteria. And it's really important to be able to get more feedback and input into whether these activities would meet these criteria. It's difficult to know what they would actually do. So it's really good to hear about people's experiences in this area as well, to be able to, for us to really narrow down on what activities we want to prioritize. So I'm just going to take a break here, and if anyone's asked questions or anything, maybe we can have a moment to answer them.
Look, Charlotte, a lot of them have been, there's a few that have come through that have just been responded to in the chat.
Great.
But no, there's some good comments in the chat. Thank you, everyone. It's encouraging to have a read about the excitement in response to what we're up to. And this is not us on our own. This is all about collaboration. I know I was involved in some school focus groups, and some responses there around just getting a better picture of what the farm involves, which is really great.
And Natalie had a question or a comment about the potential of farmer incubator, but I know you're going to cover that in the next little bit about models.
Yeah,
Charlotte.
I was going to mention it.
Yeah,
I agree, Natalie.
So I think we'll cover that. And Kevin asked a question about the idea of a cafe, and so I just want to say, and Ron will laugh too, because he was, so on our big vision, we had cafe, a retail nursery, all sorts of things that we thought would be great, you know, a great location, a draw card for the local community. But the site is a green wedge zone, and there's sort of quite a number of planning restrictions, rightly so, on what can be done in that area. So anything that looks like urban development as opposed to agricultural development is not an option on that site. So no sort of cafe, no sort of just mass public sort of drive-in activity. So whilst that was a bit of a downer at the time, it's probably really tested thinking and creativity around, well, actually just over the Hume Freeway in the new development in Wollert, maybe we could have a shop there, like a farm shop, or maybe at Melbourne Polytechnic's Epping campus we can have a nursery, or, you know, so I think those things that we think are really important extensions of the activities at the farm can actually be done in other places. So essentially we're setting up a little network of sites that are doing slightly different things based on their facilities and infrastructure, but they're all connected under the sort of one umbrella. So unfortunately, no cafe. But that, you know, schools programs or workshops, or so it's not that public can't access the site, it's just it can't be sort of urban in nature.
And does that include sales as well?
Yeah,
yeah.
So it's anything, yeah, hospitality, retail, any of those sorts of, you know, housing, anything that you would see in a new suburb is sort of not it's not okay there for good reason.
Yeah. There's a question from Fiona about fish in the creek, or is it creek too polluted, or?
I don't know about the creek, but someone, I think Andrew from council, the Aboriginal employment person, said, can we have a dam with yabbies in it? Which I thought was quite a good idea, but I'm not, we'll have to get back to you, Fiona, on the
I can
fish.
talk to the.
Oh, can you,
sorry.
Nicholas? Yep.
Yeah, so Nick Williams, University of Melbourne, but also Friends of Merri Creek president. Yeah, there's not a lot of water in the creek most of the time. And fish farms are normally associated with reasonably high nutrient levels, which we want to be avoiding because of the threatened species status of curly sedge creek and growling grass frogs and other threatened species in the area. So we need to be pretty careful about those sort of things. I guess there could be potential for aquaculture on site, but maybe, well, probably definitely not in the creek. If that's
So there's no native fish, is that?
There has been fish surveys along in the Merri. I'm not sure up there, but yeah, there would be some. Well, actually, I don't know about the native fish. We'd have to look at the existing surveys, but the creek has been pretty hammered over time, and we're restoring it. So there is possibilities, but yeah.
Excellent, thank you.
Just a couple of things. Benedict, I saw, was your hand up before, or was that a?
Yeah, just happy to have a chat if anyone had any questions about the bees and the program and the Polytech, because I work at Polytech as well.
I think this Jo Southwell has been trying to speak for some time.
She's got a hand up. Sorry.
And I'll put my hand up after that.
Okay, Jo, and then Kevin.
Okay, I just wanted to say that it's fantastic that the partnership with the Wurundjeri were around the native regeneration of the land. That's a fabulous dimension, and knowing about Bruce Pascoe's work, and I also wondered, and maybe it's a question for Charlotte, whether you guys have connected with the Melbourne Food Hub that's based in Alphington, and they're in partnership with one of the universities, I can't remember which. So I think there could be some really great mutual shared learnings from the kind of urban and peri-urban comparator.
I don't know, maybe Alex would know more. There's been conversations with them.
So there are lots of inner urban type models of growing food, and places like the Collingwood Children's Farm are really taking that to the sort of next level over the next few years. So I think there's a lot of good learning from what people have tried, and whether that sort of translates to this scale and this diversity in the community, but I think there's definitely some good connections there that we've sort of started to make. And the Open Food Network were involved in one of our really early workshops and provided lots of access to people doing things in regional areas as well. So I think the city farm movement, if I can call it that, apologies if that's not doing it justice, but there's a certain set of priorities and scope they have, and there's lots of other things in the region. So we're really in that, what can we learn from both those things to make this this a success? And Kevin.
Oh, thank you very much. First, thank you very much. I'm very interested in all this. I'm a different Kevin to the Kevin who was talking about
the
cafe before. I'm Kevin Lee. I think the other gentleman's surname was Ballum, was it? Anyway, that was interesting too. Look, I'm the convener of the Friends of Plenty River, and I'm naturally interested in the native aspects and so on. The food aspects is really wonderful too. I was just wondering about runoff from the horticultural and the vegetable aspects of the community farm. Presumably you wouldn't be wanting to let that impinge on development of native grasslands or anything of that nature there. Is there a particular problem of trying to dispose of excess runoff from the vegetable areas? It's just a thought that occurred to me. Given that the grasslands and other native plants in general don't like the high levels of fertilizer that one might want to use in veggie gardens.
Yes, the thought had occurred to us too, and the Mary Creek Management Committee have also sort of highlighted that as an issue. So it's definitely something that we're going to plan to avoid. So
Yes.
the type of farming that we choose to do, or the type of horticulture, that will be a sort of determining factor, I think. So it's definitely on the radar, and there has been quite a lot of water irrigated on that site. So yeah, it's definitely on the list of things to be considered and be careful to plan to avoid.
Yes. I had another, it's just a personal query, I suppose. I suppose the number of Torres Strait Islanders not going to be so available or so interested in this particular area, but the local Koori population, and I've no idea how big they are, presumably they'll be very interested and very pleased. It's great to have that to be catered for the farm to be catering to them. I had a notion that at Milton, they were trying to get going some aspect of Aboriginal culture representation, but the actual numbers of Aboriginal people originally native to the Milton area were very few or non-existent in the Milton area now, and so they had to take a wider view of Aboriginal culture. That was So and one final, sorry, I'm hogging the news here. I can see my wife in the background is saying I'm hogging everything here. The Upper Series, that place there, they did have, I think they not a proper restaurant, but they did have facilities, I think, for providing with a cup of tea or a coffee if you wanted it. Yeah, that's not in any sense, the big commercial, McDonald's type of cafe at all. I think it would be useful and nice to have some, provision for refreshment of that very low key form. Anyway, that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you, Kevin. I just want to thank everyone before. I know some people have to go because we're at 7 o'clock, so apologies. If you do need to go, we'll post the recording so you can catch the last 10 minutes because I know Charlotte's got a little bit more about the models. But thanks. If you do need to go, thank you for coming along and hopefully staying in touch with us. Charlotte, do you want to?
Yeah, I'll get going.
Cracking.
Share that again. Yeah, so the last little bit kind of wanted to talk about was thinking about different models of how we can actually do these activities, because all of the different activities can have different models, and it really influences the level of ownership and participation, and also the kind of impact that that can be had. And so, and also very interested to hear any models that people have come across, because I really feel like they change completely what you're doing. So if you've come across any really good community farm models that you'd like to share, then please do. And so I'm going to go through a few of the examples of these models, and they kind of range on a spectrum from autonomous spaces that share the farm with us to projects that are completely led by the partnership or by WCC. And so the first one I wanted to talk about was the United African Farm, but also Tuch Ajak, who has been is very involved in the United African Farm, I think is still here. And so I was wondering if he could give us a little background to it.
Hello, everyone. My name is Tuch Ajak. I'm the co-founder of the United African Farm. I was a bit carried about the great work that you're doing. So it was really a great presentation that you've done today. So very impressive, and I look forward to be part of. When we started with the United African Farm, was just started as a community-led project. So we came together as a community. We started at the Farmers Incubators workshop. That's when I met with one of the community leaders, Mama Kuya, and she had already established a conversation with Sustain Australia to get a piece of land. So we got a piece of land at Longwari. This was one acre, and we mobilized the community, and community came to work the land. So there's always that thing that when you newly arrive in this country, you miss the kind of food that you really have back home. So kind of the culturally appropriate foods that normally you would wish to find in the supermarkets, but sometimes when you go, you can't find things like okra. Yeah, to get a kilo of okra is quite expensive. Things like molokia and the rest. So that was the kind of a driving force. So when we came together, we went to Longwari and worked the land, and we had our first harvest. We did about 3 harvest festival. It was all about the community. So the model that we used was the community come work the land together jointly and share their farm produce. So during our farm festivals, we will bring albino musics in, we'll have some drummings, and people will buy our farm produce. All the money that we collect still go back to the farm to prepare something for the volunteers that will come and volunteer their time. So we normally have food available. And so we were still at establishment stage, whereby we're trying to discover ourselves, put our objectives together, and come up with a great model. So that was a community-led, and it still is now, though we are not producing because we lost that piece of land due to the end of Pigmy project. When the Pigmy project, a state grant scheme that came, when it ended, so we couldn't get another land. So we're still looking for a land now in the area of Cardinia, all around the Pakenham area. If we can find a land, we have developed a good membership. So we have about 80 members coming from 10 different African countries. So it's a bit of a multicultural and a bit of bridging the gap between the generations. So, and as you all know that food is another one of a unifying factor. And so once we come together, we learn among ourselves, we learn from each other. And so it has been really a great initiative. You can watch some of our videos on the website, on SBS and the rest of other media outlets. They will tell you about the greatest initiatives. So at the moment, we're still looking for land. Lucky you have a big area of land. So yeah, but for us there, we just had only 1 acre and still now looking for land. Thank you.
Thanks so much. It's really nice to hear about it from someone who's involved.
Maybe ring your water authority down there.
Yeah, I would be trying to get in touch with Melbourne Water. So there's still a conversation between us and the local council. So hopefully in the near future, we might find a place, because we were looking for something permanent, something that can give us 5 to 10 years, because having farmers involved and then there's no agreement in place, and somebody later on decided, because it's a community-led initiative, so there will be always a number of people coming to the land. So we had wanted something independent, something that we can at least use for a longer period of time, so that we can build in it, we can grow in it, and we can use it as an educational kind of purposes. Yeah.
It's great. It's very inspiring, and I hope we get to work together as well and kind of, think about what we can do at our site that is as great as what you've done. I've just got a few more models that I wanted to talk about before we end. So the first one, United African Farm, great, good work. And the next one I wanted to talk about was Food Next Door, which is based in Mildura. And it was really developed with the Burundian new migrant community in Mildura, where there were lots of people who wanted access to land to farm. But there's so many barriers to accessing land in Australia, and then that increases when you're not used to, you know, the kind of laws and restrictions and just the process of getting access to land. So they developed a cooperative which involves people who want to grow food, people who have land that they're not using, people who want to eat food, and volunteers. And then through that model, they've developed a food box system to so the food growers can provide food, and they have that market in the food box system, and they can also just take that food home and share it with their community. And they had a big focus on strengthening cultural cohesion, and also a big focus on regenerative agriculture and building the soil, as well as just increasing the number of small-scale farmers to support a local food economy to be able to break away from those agricultural systems that are really bad for the land. And then the next one that I had here was farmer incubator programs. So farmer incubator programs are a concept that's global, and it's around early career farmers or people who have limited access to land that want to farm, to be able to work on or develop their farm on a pre-established farm, and they have access to that land and to resources and to shared knowledge. And so this is something that we could establish at our farm once it's going, as well as like Natalie mentioned in the chat, there's opportunities for partnerships with the Melbourne-based organisation called Farmer Incubator, especially their pop-up garlic farm program, where they do like a seasonal farmer incubator, and people can learn about growing garlic from the beginning to the end. And then the last one is kind of that end of the spectrum where it's more managed by the farm itself. And so Green Connect in Wollongong, they have a big focus on providing employment opportunities. Particularly for them, they were providing employment for people with refugee backgrounds, as well as disadvantaged young people. And yeah, so that's a permaculture farm that really has that focus ingrained into the model. And so, yeah, so all of these models are really based on the own community's context, and, you know, meeting the specific needs of that community. And it doesn't have to just be around, particularly on our farm, it doesn't have to be around just productive agriculture. Like, we're thinking about models to do with how to think about incorporating school programs, community education, as well as opportunities within reconciliation, and also just bringing about community connectedness to the local environment. And so the next slide was just a bit of information on how to stay involved. But I also wanted to find out the best way that people would like to stay involved in the farm and the project. So I have another poll that we can do, just to get a bit of an idea of how everyone wants to stay in touch. So I'm going to launch it again. And feel free to fill it out if you'd like. I might also get in touch afterwards and see yeah, how people would like to stay involved. All right, it's almost everyone. Yeah, I think that's everyone. All right. Well, yeah, that's the end of what I had to say. So if you had anything to add, Alex, or any questions?
No, just to thank everyone for joining us. This is obviously the first time we've had a public sort of information sharing, idea sharing session. So it's great to get your input and get a gauge on what sort of things people are interested in or not interested in, and really encourage you to stay in touch if there are things or ring or we're really happy to talk about this with anyone, particularly people in our local community or people that are involved, like took in other enterprises or other community projects that they think have some relevance on this. But also, we'll continue our conversations with people like the Merri Creek Management Committee about the sorts of practical and development sort of constraints and opportunities that there are. So, we're keen to talk with anyone that has experience, expertise, wisdom, general interest, or just energy to get involved, because we really do want the community in Community Farm to be sort of at the forefront of what we're doing and to help us direct what happens and when it happens. So yeah, it's just a big invitation to anyone who's keen to stay in touch to do that. So we have your registration, so we might actually just communicate with you about how you might want to stay in touch if you do. But also, thank you for spending an hour and a quarter with us. I know it's sort of a busy time of night for a lot of people as well. So we'll also hopefully Aresti, the Zoom master, can save the chat. So we will follow up on anything that we didn't answer very well during this session. And really that's it, unless people have additional comments or things they want to share.
Well, thank you very much, everybody, and Charlotte particularly, who's the person who contacted me, and I'll look forward to following up and hearing more about it. Thank you very much,
Kevin.
Thanks for coming along.
Right,
yeah.
Goodbye.
And just one more thing. So Mark's just put a comment up. He came in a bit late and just mentioned about getting an update or a summary of this evening. So Mark, the recording will be available. Where are we going to place that up on through our Facebook page?
Yeah, we'll put the link. Yeah, so Whittlesea Food Collective has a Facebook page for those of you on Facebook. Otherwise, we should be able to get it out by email because we've got your registration through Eventbrite. So we might go that way. But if we haven't got in touch with you in a week, we've lost you in the system somehow, do email us or give me a call. You can find us at Whittlesea Community Connections. So yeah, you should be able to get us either Facebook or just the good old-fashioned phone. And yeah, we'd love to hear from anyone.
Bye.
Good.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
And thanks to all you who have given us good advice along the way. So it's really important because we're certainly not experts in these areas. And enjoy the rest of your evening.
Yeah.
Thanks you, everyone.
See you next time.
Can you save the chat, Aresti?
Yeah, I've just saved it. I've got to get off the call because I've got to get onto another one. Is that okay?
Yeah.
So I think the recording will be on your computer, Charlotte, because you started it. So
you can probably stop it now. Okay. Charlotte's gone. Do we need to tell her to stop the recording?
No, that's okay. Once we kill it, it'll just start recording.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
All right. Thank you. Bye.